song for you. For you, I sing this song.
Sing this song for you.
Sultry, passionate, soulful, hypnotic. The descriptions may vary, but the voice is always the same. Unmistakably, undeniably, unescapably, Anita Baker. Born January 26, 1958, Anita has been singing since she first discovered her voice, performing in the storefront churches of Detroit. Then she found her own instrument, a rich, smoky contralto, which delicately fused the vocal stylings of her icons, the divine Sarah Vaughan and the incomparable Nancy Wilson, with her own sultry inflections. It was that voice that she carried from band to band while making her rounds on the bolstering Detroit musical circuit until she found her way to the biggest, hottest band of the day, Chapter 8. The association lasted for a year and a half until the group lost their deal and Anita had to return to regular work. But as destiny would have it, while serving as a legal secretary, music re-entered Anita's life in a major way. Wooed away from the security of her 9-to-5 position, the lovely 25-year-old Miss Anita D. Baker emerged as the songstress. After receiving critical acclaim for the project, which gave birth to such quiet storm classics as Angel, No More Tears, and Sometime, Anita severed ties with Beverly Glen Music, was quickly signed by Elektra Entertainment, and an already promising career took full flight, and the world got caught up in rapture. The critically praised and publicly embraced album sold 6 million copies, won the singer her first pair of Grammy Awards, 2 NAACP Image Awards, a Soul Train Music Award, and 2 American Music Awards. And it established her as one of the finest voices in all of music, the first chanteuse to be so popular since Sarah, Ella, and Billie at their heights. From sold-out concert performances and a myriad of television appearances, Anita went back into the studio, but this time she was wonderfully distracted, having met the love of her life, Walter Bridgeforth, who was then an IBM executive. Anita wrote songs of love overwhelming, passionate, and burning. The multi-platinum selling release featured Giving You the Best That I Got, Lead Me Into Love, and Just Because. Public adoration, critical acclaim, and awards continued. Anita moved forward to complete Compositions. Her third offering, which featured the appropriately titled Fairy Tales and Talk to Me, demanded that she hit the road again. It was during this 8-month tour that Anita, overwhelmed and drained, stopped to focus on the family that she and husband Walter had mutually decided upon. And they were twice blessed. First with Walter Baker Bridgeforth, and then they were delightfully surprised to find that the weight that Anita couldn't lose was their second child, Edward Carlton Bridgeforth. With her fondest wishes for a family fulfilled, Anita completed her latest collection of fireside love songs, Rhythm of Love, with a vibrant passion that can be heard on every song. And when we return, the lovely Anita Baker will speak with us, lyrically, about where she's been personally, where she's going musically, and her much anticipated and greatly welcome return to the musical fold.
first musical experience. I'm going to give you my first musical experience, and then I'm going to give you the first one that moved me. My first musical experience, I can see myself sitting as a little girl. I couldn't have been any more than about 2 or 3. And all I can see are the 3 tone pedals that are on the bottom of a piano. And I can see my aunt's legs, because, see, she's playing the piano, and I'm just sitting, you know, beneath her, just listening to her play. But the first thing that just, you know, just like, well, just shoot me now, you know, was an old spiritual that you don't find this song very much in the big churches. You know, this was something that was sang just before the minister came up to deliver his sermon in these little storefront churches that were inhabited by southern migrants, you know, who came up to the cities to find work. And it was, I love the Lord, He heard my cry. And I would just cry. You know, I gotta be like 6 years old. But the line goes, I love the Lord, He heard my cry, and He pitied every groan. And it would just make me cry. I had no idea why. It wasn't a hurtful cry. You know, I wasn't in pain, but that whenever that would happen, it would bring tears to my eyes. I can't isolate the first instance when I heard Sarah, but I can tell you that the memory I do have is of associating myself with a singer. When I started to hear my own voice, I started to look for something similar, because my voice was totally unlike anyone else's, because here I am, I'm like, you know, 12, 13 years old, and I got this, like, this heavy voice. I mean, I sound like a guy, for crying out loud. And no one else sounded like that, and I really thought of myself as somewhat of a misfit until I heard Sarah. What was it about Chapter 8 that connected me to them as a band? Was the fact that they were the biggest, hottest band in the city. And they offered me the gig. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you know, this, because prior to Chapter 8, I basically just migrated from band to band. I would sing at Henry's Cabaret Lounge tonight, and there's a musician in the audience. They give me a card and say, why don't you come and audition for our band? And I'd audition, I'd get that gig, I'd perform with them, somebody else would. It was always like that. It was always that way. You know, people today ask me, well, you know, who should I send my tape to? I'm like, I don't know. You know, just sing, just do what you do. Somebody's going to see you, you know. And basically the cards kept coming until finally this card ended up in my hand that said Chapter 8, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And this was the place where I learned to do all the things that I've been doing, you know, in my professional recording career. We played at this club called the Total Experience. It belonged to a music industry guy named Simmons. He handled the Gap Band, and this was his club. While we were playing there, people were seeing me. Record people were watching, and I didn't know until the record deal was dissolved, until I had gone back to Detroit, found a job as a secretary for a prepaid legal services plan, and then here comes another record deal, another offer. And mind you, I got paid vacation here at this job, which you don't get being in a band, you know. And by now, you know, I'm like, I guess about 21 by now, and I'm starting to understand, well, wait a minute, you know, if I keep this secretarial job 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, I can sing on the weekends, you know, and still kind of have a life here, you know, plus my hospitalization and you know, and my vacation. So when the offer came, I was a little apprehensive. Oh, geez. The association with Beverly Glen and the Songstress album, and my record deal there came to an end. Oh gee, I guess maybe we were only associated about 2 years, because you see, first of all, Lois Landry didn't raise no fool. We didn't go to college, but we had common sense. And common sense was telling me, well, you know, you're performing all across the country in these clubs, and I guess these clubs hold maybe about 300, 400 people. And now you're opening for Frankie Beverly and Mays, and he's playing to 3,000, 5,000 people, and they all seem to know this music, which means that at least 3,000 people have this record. And if 3,000 people have purchased this record, then the last statement that you received from Beverly Glenn Records, your last royalty statement, saying that you had only sold like 10 records and you were still in arrears to them for X amount of dollars, that cannot be right. And as I started to question that, then I started to say, well, you know what? They're not going to listen to me, because I hired a lawyer, and he says, oh, don't worry about it. And I hired an accountant. They said, well, yeah, that's true, but, you know, you got a deal. Don't worry about it. I was like, I need a manager. Yeah, right. I need a manager. So I just started going to concerts, and I'd be trying to get backstage, and people, well, you can't get backstage to see Chaka Khan. I'm like, yeah, I love Chaka Khan, but could I get her manager's card? You know. And once I sought competent management, they said, yeah, Anita, your worst fears are true. You're being hoodwinked. You're just being scammed. You're being bamboozled. And subsequently, attorneys were hired, and lawsuits were filed, and I gained my freedom. Well, you know, I think once I had established who was going to allow me just creative freedom, I decided, you know, to go with Electra. And again, I was asking for creative control. I never knew what executive producer meant, you know, because executive producer can mean anything from the man who holds the purse strings to the person with creative control. In my instance, unbeknownst to me, it meant both. It meant that I handled that at that time, which was a lot of money for me, was a $200,000 budget. And that meant that, okay, you want the control, you got it. Here's your budget. And if you can't bring these songs home for this, then, you know, that's what's up. You the executive producer, you figure out something else. So I never thought about the money, because I didn't know how much the studio's going to cost, how much the arrangements are going to cost, what's the producer going to charge, how many points does he get. I had no idea what points were. My main focus was, what kind of music are we going to do? And I didn't give it a second thought. Basically, this company took me into the boardroom and sat me down at this huge table and told me, producer, you name it. I don't want to say names, you know, because I don't want to slight anybody, but I mean, the biggest names that were around at the time, they were throwing out on this beautiful mahogany table, and I said, Michael Powell. And they said, who? And I said, Michael Powell. And they said, well, what does Michael Powell do? What records has he produced? And I said, none. And they said, well, why should we give him $200,000? And I said, but you said you gave it to me. You know, you said that I could, and now you're saying, so can I? You know, and they said, yeah, we did say that, didn't we? And I'm like, yeah, it's like right here, it's on paper, so can I like go? And they said, okay. So I called Michael, who had produced the Chapter 8 album, who was the only person I've ever worked with and enjoyed working with. And I basically determined what the songs were going to be, and I gave them to him, and I didn't have to speak because we had worked together for close to, you know, like 3.5, 4 years off and on, and he knew what I did, and I knew what he did. So I wrote Been So Long at the Oakwood Garden Apartments on Forest Lawn Drive and off of the 101 freeway. I gave it to Mike, and he produced it. I mean, we had to cut it 3 times until we got it to where we both looked at each other and went, mm-hmm.
I won't be neglected, I won't be denied pleasure of your kissing, pleasure of your smile. I think you take for granted that I'll always be here. Just because I love you does not mean I won't disappear.
Unbeknownst to me, cutting a song 3 times, you're extending your budget, sweetie. You're throwing away money. But see, I didn't understand that what artists do with a budget, with a $200,000 budget, you know, your first one, you take $50,000 and do the record. And you take the $150 and you put it in your pocket. But I'm like, but no, this is for the music, and I gotta, well, I ain't had no money before, so I don't care. This is for the music. Let's put it here. So we were cutting things 2 and 3 times and taking this drummer out and bringing in another drummer and going to another city to cut this because this is where this best vocal booth is. And before you knew it, I was like, I had cut like 6 tunes and I was out of money. And I was like, oops. And I told my manager, and my manager went to the company and they said, hey, you know, we're doing the best we can. You know, we've given you a lot of money. You're a first-time artist. You're just going to have to give it to us like it is, and we're going to have to let someone else finish it, you know, or that's what you're going to have to do. And so I said, well, you know what? I got a couple of dollars, and I'll get a couple of dollars. And basically, I finished the rest of that record with my own money. When I first started to be just cognizant of the fact that people were buying Rapture and things were happening, was, I think it was in D.C. We were rehearsing for the live video, which, you know, was nothing to me. Oh, they're going to do a live video to sell of my concert. I'm like, okay. Didn't mean anything to me. I didn't get that. What I got was the cover of Jet magazine. What? I mean, I'm rehearsing for this taping, you know, later on that evening, and somebody comes in and throws a Jet magazine on my piano with my picture on it. I lost my mind. That told me, okay. All right. Okay, we're going somewhere. Okay? Really have not been aware that I respond differently to my own compositions when I perform them live. I've heard this maybe 2 or 3 times from people that I tend to go someplace else with my own compositions. There is a place where you do disappear now. I wasn't aware that I disappear more with my own compositions, but there is a time when everything is right, when the music is right, or even when it's all wrong, but you're just not focusing on anything, that you just totally leave until the song is over. Then you come back and you go, well, for our next selection, you know, and it's like you've been kind of occupied. You've been I don't know, you've just been occupied for a while by another whatever, I don't know. But it's a wonderful thing.
Ain't there something I can give in exchange for everything you give to me? Be my
I was crazy in love out of my mind. I wasn't thinking about, you know, a couple of million people are going to read this, maybe. But also, by the same token, this is the follow-up to Rapture. There's nothing to make me think anybody's going to buy this anyway. You know, the first thing was, God knows why that happened. You know, this was the tough one, you know, the follow-up record. So, you know, after I became conscious of the fact that I've done this, and thank you, Walter, for leading me into love, like, well, is it going to sell anything? You know, I like what we've done. I'm really happy with the project. But before I had time to think about it, the next tour was booked. Elektra was pulling this thing out of my hand. I had to go to the mastering lab to get it back because it wasn't finished, and they were ready to take it because the tour was happening.
when I think about how much I'm loving you. No limitation, no set of regimented rules. I'm amazed how much this love has touched my life. And the commitment that we share is a welcome sacrifice.
Anyway, we were in love. And yes, we were living together. I was living at his house, and we had bought a house on the lake, which is the house that we ended up getting married in. But I remember I hadn't thought about oh, it's time to do stuff for the new record. We had just come back from a trip to L.A. And in that trip, once I get to L.A., which is where my management's offices were, there's always like this huge manila envelope full of mail and full of stuff, and in it is usually a couple of tapes from publishing houses. And in it was this tape, Giving You the Best That I Got. And while I was in L.A., I was staying at the Sunset Marquis Hotel. I'll never forget it. I would just play this tape over and over and over and over again. And all that was there was the chorus. That's all that was there. Now, during the time, unbeknownst to me, during the time that I'm listening to this, like forever, every day, you know, so much till Walter is like sick of it, the song is writing itself internally. And this is the way it had to happen, because by the time I got home and sat down and said, well, you know, I have to write this, because there was no bridge, there was no verse section, it was just this hook with some garbage stuck on either end of it. It wrote itself. It wrote itself from the first word, ain't there something I can give you? I'm like, I know what this is about. And there it was. The bridge came later. The bridge was more difficult. But that was a musical thing, because there wasn't even any music to the bridge. But and after that, Just Because came. And I chose that not because it was starting to fit a mold, but because Lorraine Perry was singing it, of the Perry Sisters, and I had to have it. And then, God, oh, what's the other one that came? The Lead Me Into Love came. And I just had the good sense to choose them. But they came, I tell you, I don't send people tapes. I don't consciously say I have to write a song. The tools that I need are given to me. From the day that I was born, You know, when my mom couldn't deal with raising a little baby, my parents were given to me. Everything I've ever needed has just been given to me. I just have to have the good sense. Oh, there it is. Okay. Compositions is the only record that I've really thought about. And I think that's a mistake. What I do is instinctive and intuitive. Thinking is not something that should figure into my music very often. But the thought started coming into my head that my music was getting a little too perfect, a little too polished and too manicured, and I was trying to get to something. I didn't realize at the time that I wanted something raw. And so I was still searching. With compositions is a part of the search. And at that stage of my search into what I was looking for, I said, well, maybe I need to write more. You know, maybe I need to just not think of what style of song I want to do. Let's just do what I really want to do, which is just some jazzy something. I walked into the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Chicago that overlooks Lake Michigan. And just as a rule on the road, because you live on the road so much, there has to be some kind of constant. I mean, we would, at least 5 cities a week. My constant was that when I walked into my hotel room, everything needed to be to the right of the entrance. This was a sameness that I needed. I walked into this hotel, everything was to the left. It threw me for a loop. I just started walking around in circles, and I was just crying. And Walter's like, it's time to go home. Let's go. And I mean, we canceled, like, my manager to this day, it's crazy. We canceled at least like $500,000 worth of dates, and we went home. And I'm like, I canceled $500,000, and I'm really crazy now, okay? Because I'm still Anita Baker from inner city Detroit. I don't care how many zeros get put wherever, there's something in me that still understands that. I just kind of wandered around for a while and wondered what happened. I didn't know what happened, but I soon realized that, all of these road trips and the studio, I was living, but I wasn't living life. I was being a recording artist and a celebrity, and I'd come home long enough to drop a bag and pick up another one, you know. And so I was afraid. Once I got home, I was afraid to be there because I was like, well, I don't know what to do. You know, you can only go visit your parents so many times before they start saying, well, don't you have something to do? I started to, Walter and I, as we started to spend more and more time together, it became really clear that I was upset by those miscarriages, but I just worked so much that I didn't give myself time to fully recuperate, in the sense that I wanted babies, you know. And we both decided we wanted babies. We want to try this again. And we tried it, and we had a miscarriage, and then we had to recover from that. And then we tried it again, and I got a little Walter. And then we tried it again, and I got a little Eddie. And so, just in a nutshell, that's what it was. That's all it was. I needed a life, you know?
Mm-hmm. You bring me joy when I'm down. Oh, so much joy when I lose my way. Your love comes smiling on me. I saw your face, and then
Anita Baker, as we all know, is a classic. It's an unmistakable voice. It's a voice that you know the minute you hear it, it can be confused with no other.
Her voice is such a strong instrument, and she sings with such heart.
In finishing the album, once I found out I was expectant again, as I said, I was looking for something when we were doing compositions. And at the time we were doing compositions, I thought that I needed to change my style. I thought that I needed to write more, that I needed to delve into my jazz demons more, but that wasn't it. What I was looking for was not a change of sound in terms of my style. I needed to change the sound, just the audible portion of what you hear. It had become so smooth, so slick, so polished, so compressed. My vocal was this big. My vocals were pulled back into the mix. The music became almost more important than my vocals. And I sat, for months, talking with my engineer, how do we take the ceiling off of this house? How do we get out of this little box that we're in? And we started experimenting with different rooms and different EQs, and he even bought me a workstation, which everybody knows I've always hated synthesizers, and I've always been negative about them, but he bought me this little Yamaha workstation, a Korg workstation. And I started writing on this, and I started experimenting with different little sounds and different percussive elements, and I'm like, oh, I like this. And out of that came Rhythm of Love.
You know, this whole world, it just keeps on spinning around and around, and you know, sometimes it just spins too fast, and you not only lose your balance, but you lose your rhythm. And it's at times like these that you just need to stop and not only find your way again, but find your own rhythm, because life has a rhythm, and Mother Nature has a rhythm, and love, oh yes, love has a rhythm.
Love, it has to do with my going away for 3 years and finding myself, and it had to be aggressive. I wasn't conscious of that, but as it was coming out through that workstation, it had to be aggressive. It had to be at you. It had to be percussive, you know. But at the same time, the lyrics are very soothing. They're very personable. Once I decided I can do this, meaning I don't necessarily think I need to call Michael for this. I was halfway through it. I was halfway through the record before it dawned on me, I can do this. I hadn't called Michael yet because I didn't want to call him because I knew I was pregnant, and I'm like, well, you know, we may have to stop at any moment. I'll just go as far as I can. And as far as I can became halfway through the project. It does it for me. Plenty of room. It does it for me. It really does. Whatever it is, it does it. It goes in there and it pushes that button. And the song, you know, a lot of people think it's vague, but it's not vague at all to me. It's called Plenty of Room, and it basically speaks of how it's a different kind of love, the kind of love that you have with children, and that you should have with lovers. You have to let them go at some point. If you love these people, you have to let them go, and let them go, but know that if you need to come back here, you know, if you need to come back here, I got room, plenty of room. Never lonely again, just open my door, come on in, 'cause I got room, you know. And the song goes from that also to being the bridge section. It says, right now would be a good time to find that you have walked into my room. Any time is a good time, baby. It ain't never too late, it ain't never too soon. When I wrote that section of it, I just see myself as a grandmother or as an old woman, just sitting around the fireplace, you know, looking at the picture of my sons and their wives, maybe and their children, and just looking at that door and saying, damn, you know, this would be a good time if you just walked on up in here. You know, I could put some food on the stove, and you could, there's a line that goes, lay your burdens by the fire, rest your worries in my bed. You'll never be lonely, boy, don't you hear what I said? People think I'm talking about a lover, but I'm talking about my boys, you know. Just come on in, put whatever it is down over there, and just, you know, let's eat, let's visit, you know. With Rhythm of Love, the musicianship is still the same. That's always going to be the same. That's me, you know. I like musicians. I mean, I remember, oh, geez, a friend of mine, well, he wasn't, I had just met him, but Bradford Marcellus came to a show that we did at the Greek Theater a few years ago, and Fairy Tales was out, and he came backstage and he said, you know, thanks for letting the guys play on the record. And that never occurs to me because it was a live hit, and they were jamming. What am I going to do, stop them? This feels great. What am I going to, I'm not going to stop this, you know. And I'm just never conscious of the fact that you're letting the guys play because I'm a rhythm section singer. And when we were on stage with Chapter 8 doing 4-hour sets a night, you know, there was a place where where I had contributed all that I had to contribute, but the guitar player was making his contribution, so I just stepped back and appreciate his contribution, you know, and that's just part of it.
Mr. Donald Griffin on lead guitar, to make it feel nice.
son is about almost 12 weeks old now. My voice does not come back until around the 5th month. So once my son is 5 months old, we'll have the pipes back. It looks like we're going to start on the West Coast. I say it looks like we're going to start on the West Coast. They're the people who have come to us first. So first come, first serve. And, you know, there'll be the usual amount of television. But I tell you, I can't wait, you know, to be in concert. I simply cannot wait.